The allegations that have been thrown at Ferrari after their double disqualification in China is genuinely laughable. People genuinely thinking, oh, they cheated, they did this on purpose. I don't think they did. I really don't think they did, because to do that knowingly would be monumentally stupid, because you can't get away with it. So for those that don't know, for those that have missed what happened in China, Charles Leclerc and Sir Lewis Hamilton finished in 5th and 6th place respectively. Leclerc was disqualified due to his car being underweight, and also Hamilton was disqualified for his plank on the underside of the car being worn down too much. Now, both of these in theory do give performance advantages. If your car is underweight, it can be quicker around the corners and quicker in the straight because you've got less mass to move around. If your car is lower and wearing out the plank too quickly, then of course you can actually be quicker because your car is lower down to the ground, better center of gravity, aerodynamic profile being less. I've already explained all this before here on Formula Reports. But yeah, some people genuinely thinking that Ferrari have done this on purpose. I don't think they have. I just think it's a bit of... I think Ralf Schumacher in his assessment was very harsh, but it's kind of hard to disagree with a bit of incompetence really, because all the other teams, with the exception of Alpine and Pierre Gasly, did manage to make their cars legal and go through the race. 17 out of the 20 cars did, of course, well, I mean, if you would retire, of course, Alonso didn't make the end of the race, but you know what I mean, their cars were legal. But unfortunately, yeah, Ferraris weren't. But yeah, Vasseur is having to defend the team, saying that we didn't cheat, we didn't do this on purpose, it was just an honest mistake, which I think it was. But let's have a look at this article on the F1Chronicle.com, guys. Full art as always on here. Ferrari's search for perfection went too far in China, said team boss Frederic Vasseur. The Italian media has described the team's 2025 car project as ambitious but immature, which was clearly seen in Shanghai, where Lewis Hamilton won the sprint race from pole but then struggled in the main race. Worse still, after the race, FIA scrutineers found both cars to be illegal, Hamilton with an excessively worn plank and Charles Leclerc underweight. We must have been too aggressive, Fred Vasseur told France's L'Equipe. That's how it is. This setback shows that we are in search of perfection and that sometimes we look too far. In both cases, the cars were not far from being legal, just 1 kilogram of weight for Leclerc and Hamilton's plank a tiny 0.5 millimeter too thin. You have to make a distinction between disqualification, because you're taking risk in disqualification because someone is cheating, Vasseur insisted. The aim of the game in F1 is to push yourself to the limit of all parameters everywhere. To get the last gram of weight, the last 1/10 of a millimeter of a skid block, to get the last millimeter of a wing deformation. It's certainly that the more pressure you're under, the more intense the fight, the closer you need to get to those limits and the more risks you take. Vasseur is not writing off Ferrari's chances of beating McLaren to the 2025 World Championship. Of course, McLaren is in good shape, he is quoted as saying by Motorsport Total, but that does not mean that the championship is over for us. We are talking about a 10th or a 10th of a half lap of prep, said the Frenchman. You can go from P6 to P1 or P1 to P6. So we have to be calm, work step by step and make the changes to the car until the very last moment. And he's right. He's right. These are incredibly fine margins, and if you're not pushing the envelope in Formula 1, then you're not going to be very successful. You have to push the limits, and unfortunately, sometimes you do go over. Now, in terms of, I've already given my theories as to why this happened. With Charles Leclerc, he did a one-stop race, as did Pierre Gasly, who also got disqualified for being underweight too. I think that kilogram easily could have been lost in the tyres, being more worn down in both of their cases. Not dissimilar, actually exactly the same as what happened to George Russell last year in Belgium. It happens. Clearly they were more on the limit than the other teams, because most of the teams also did a one stop, but Charles Leclerc actually fell foul of that. When it came to Sir Lewis Hamilton with his plank being worn out too much, again, they're pushing the limits. The car was run a bit too low, the plank was worn out too much. So yeah, it's easily done. It's very easily done. They clearly went over the limit and they got punished for it. They didn't argue about it, and I think it's a bit farcical having to defend themselves in the press like this. They made a mistake, it didn't pay off. Bit like with their gamble with the strategy in Australia, not many people are really, people are having to go at them for that as well. They rolled the dice, it didn't work out, but they have a big old gap to McLaren to make up now. It's going to be tough. It's not unheard of for sure. You look at Red Bull last year. Look how far they were ahead after a few rounds. We're only 2 rounds into the season, so there's plenty of time for Ferrari to recover it. But as it goes by, it's going to get more difficult. And, because of all this, they might well run a more conservative setup as a result in Japan. And the pace might suffer because of it. They did in Australia. and their pace suffered. So we'll see what happens, guys. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below as always. Hope you have a fantastic day, and yeah, have a great weekend when it arrives as well. So yeah, see you very soon.